Hey there, duelists, and welcome back to the Crystal Domain. Today, some pretty awesome new support showed up in the form of Morganite cards. And there's a monster, and there is a new Morganite to finalize the set of three stones, right? And so the old Morganites have kind of been played throughout. I've seen them in a number of deck lists. I've been including them myself in some builds I've made. I've been finding myself enjoying them more and more in decks, right? Just because the ability to give yourself permanent effects for the remainder of the duel is good. I mean, sure there is some drawbacks in terms of not really drawing your actual card per turn, but it does fuel a different type of gameplay, and especially with these new cards, it's starting to veer into a different direction, and I wanted to kind of talk about them all encompassing, right? So, for starters, let's talk about the old ones. So the first one that came out was Time Tearing Morganite, which is a normal spell card. For the remainder of the duel, you apply that you cannot activate monster effects in the hand. You don't get to play hand traps, but honestly, it's fine. There's other cards this affects, but for a lot of the situations that could come up, honestly, that one drawback isn't that big of a deal. Granted, if you're in like a higher level of play, you're gonna want to have access to interaction. So probably the Morganites are not the best bet in the world, but for the average deck, these are quite good, right? So the other ability is that you will draw two cards instead of one for your normal draw during your draw phase. Um, I'm realizing that I said earlier that it took away your draw. My bad. Clearly misremembering the exact drawbacks of these cards. You still get your draw. It's just that in the case of Time Tearing Morganite, you specifically now draw two instead of one. Then you can also now conduct two normal summons or sets per turn, not just one. And then you can banish this card from the graveyard, discard a separate copy of itself, and your opponent can activate monster effects when normal summon this turn. We're ignoring that last effect because we're in a one of one format, right? But two draw per turn, two normal summons per turn, and any archetype, excluding one or even ones that already have their own built-in normal summon additionals, is quite nice. And then we had after that we got Succumbing Song Morganite. Again, you cannot activate monster effects in the hand. For the rest of the duel, you get all these abilities. Monsters you control can make up to 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase. And if your monster battles an opponent's monster, any battle damage it inflicts to your opponent is doubled. And then you can banish it to add a Morganite card from your deck to your hand. Then you place one card from your hand on the bottom of the deck. Now, this one can search the other one, whereas the other one specifically needed you to pitch an extra copy of itself. So, in the case of Succumbing Song, you can at least search the new one, the monster, because the monster, we'll get to it, but the monster counts as a Morganite card, so it's searchable by Succumbing Song. And then also, it can get the new stone, the old one, the creature, as I said. Being able to search these cards is nice to just round out your getting all of these abilities online as much as possible in a game. Um, in the context of this one specifically, I do like this one as well, just for being able to encourage like combat heavy win conditions, not just like yeah, you're supposed to win by getting the life points to zero, usually by the battle phase and stuff like that. But this really encourages those style of play, especially in a deck that already is doing some stuff like this. So, an example of where I like these cards is I have enjoyed taking the Morganite cards and putting them into Blue Eyes because you're already playing big beaters and then you're even potentially running Chaos Max. Why not just go full on like quadruple damage? And then also like making 2 attacks, that way you can knock out multiple players in a turn. This encourages winning the game more efficiently, and I think that helps decks that want to win by playing big beaters and swinging large attacks, right? So now we have the new cards, okay? So in Duelist Advance, we're getting 2 new Morganite support cards. Like I said, one is a creature, and one is a new normal spell to add on to the rounding out this set of cards. So we have Morgana, the Witch of Eyes. It shows all 3 stones in the artwork, so more than likely this is the end of these cards, at least for the time being. Morgana, the Witch of Eyes, is a level 4 dark spellcaster that is always treated as a Morganite card. That, as I said, Succumbing Song will search this card. It has 1500 attack and 2100 defense. You can only use the first and third effects of this card's name each once per turn. First ability is if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add a Morganite spell directly from your deck to your hand. This searches any of the 3, which is very good. Effect number 2, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish a Morganite spell from your graveyard to negate the attack. A bit situational, but really, I mean, Time Tearing Morganite is the one that doesn't do anything in a 1-of-1 format. So you could banish Time Tearing Morganite to negate an attack, which could be useful to prolong your game, to win out against being aggressed, and especially a game like Domain, where you do want to negate attacks if possible to avoid losing in the battle phase, which, the battle phase is more important in a 4-player environment compared to a 1v1 environment. So you're not relying as much on board breaking and then just setting up like an impossible to break board like in regular Advanced, where really you're trying to like attrition, and you're going to really have to win out often by just swinging over. Negating attacks is pretty crucial. Then the third ability, if you have 3 or more Morganite spells with different names in your graveyard and or banishment, you can make the attack of all face-up monsters your opponent controls to 0. This is great to fuel Succumbing Song, right? So Succumbing Song is all about battle. You want to double damage, you want to attack multiple times. Morgana adds to this ability by, if you just have played all 3 of the stones, as long as you have all 3, at least in grave, or you've banished one of them, it accounts for wherever they are on the field. You can blanket reduce all their monsters to 0, a great way to close a game. Not to mention that the domain of this card is actually quite nice. And what I was going to talk about after going over what each of these cards do is kind of where their home might be, right? So the next card, the last stone, is the Guilt Gripping Morganite. Again, normal spell for the rest of the duel. You apply the following effects. You cannot activate monster effects in the hand. You can normal summon level 5 or higher monsters without tributing. And then you do not pay life points to activate spell or trap cards. As the last ability, then you can banish this card from your graveyard and then reveal a Morganite card in your hand. Place the reveal card on the bottom of the deck and then draw 1 card. So that last ability, not really going to come up too much unless you just don't really need that Morganite you drew into. And you could just pitch it back to the bottom to draw a fresh card. Maybe find a different answer for whatever you're looking for. But in the case of this one, it does change up a bit in what direction we're looking at for what this deck is doing, or what this engine is doing. Because now, with this last one, we are playing big guys without tributing, and we are also reducing the life point cost of spell and trap cards. So what does this kind of lead to, right? So there's a couple ideas that I kind of had in mind. For starters, in a Rule Zero pregame conversation, people were already, playing Monarchs, right? A deck that wants to tribute out the Monarchs and get their effects and control the game, prevent the use of the extra deck, things like that. Very Floodgate-ish type style deck that is popular, even though it's not legal in Domain. It's still built. Like, I have my own list of it for a friend of mine that really likes Monarchs. And in that build, I was already running the first 2 Morganites. So, realistically, I would just add the new ones. What the new ones do, though, is, like before, you're drawing cards, you're conducting your good normal summons, you're battling with much better efficiency of multiple attacks, and also doubling your damage. But now with the new cards, you are searching them out through Morgana, which is accessible pretty easily by being in Dark. That's very frequently obtainable in popular domains. And then now, on top of it, you're able to normal summon without tributing, which is really good for Monarchs in general. Even if you're not playing a Monarch deck with a pregame combo attached, being able to normal summon guys like Monarchs is very nice to alleviate some of the costs. Even though they are built to be tribute-based decks, removing that cost if your hand doesn't have access to like the stuff to cheapen the blow of tributing, then this is great. Now on the other end, the other thing I thought about with Guild Gripping Morganite is counter fairies. So counter fairies is, you know, a usually light-based fairy deck style that wants to alleviate the cost of counter traps. Usually there are heavy costs to counter traps because of how powerful they are. Solemn Judgment, all Solemn Line, things like that, that to negate and destroy most of your opponent's stuff, to prevent them from playing things like that. And this card will, on its own, just blanket remove those costs, which could be great for, like I said, the Solemn Lines, counter traps, support the counter fairy deck. This could lead to counter fairies maybe gaining some popularity as a style of deck in Domain. I haven't really seen anyone, like, granted, I haven't searched a lot to see how many have done it, but I often see what's being made in the server and stuff like that, and I haven't realized, or it hasn't caught my attention that someone has built like a counter fairy deck, right? So, but that is a good concept in mind to support that style. Now, in regards to the other part of it about like what you could play for free, there's some stuff that kind of comes to mind, but I could be wrong because you'll think about like, oh, I could just summon like a god card, and you can't because they have summoning restrictions, or sacred beasts, which you can't because they have summoning restrictions. The wickeds also have summoning restrictions. Maybe like I thought monarchs, of course, and then there is like the meme of you could just like drop normal iconic monsters for free, like Dark Magician. Like it lets you kind of pretend you're in like the season 1 of the anime where you're just dropping like level 5 or highers for free, which is pretty funny. Like it's not necessarily great, but it is a neat way of just cheating out fan favorite cards. Um, Now, the thing to go back to, though, is in regards to Morgana and this engine, is that because she's a spellcaster, she is easily slotted in a lot of different decks. You could see this card pop up in maybe Dark Magician. If you are in the worst hand of your life, this card could at least search out the Guild Gripping Morganite. That way you could at least just hard cast Dark Magician for free if, like, worst case scenario, right? But then on the other end, I did think about the fact that this does fit perfectly into one of the most popular DMs in the format, being Dark Doriato, which gives you access to everything but light. And Dark Doriato, being a very popular deck master, gives you everything you need here, but then also because Dark Doriato is such a open domain, that I think that card will gain even more popularity alongside this kit of cards. Like, now that we've seen the completed version of this engine, I think it gives us a pretty good basis to just help with consistency. It reduces the ability to run into bricky monsters. You just play them. It allows you to reduce the cost of spell or trap cards, which, actually, important thing to think about here. You do not pay life points to activate spell or trap cards. So, the first thing I can also think of here, just quick tangent, if I'm wrong, I could be, but I'm imagining with the wording here that you overwrite, an example being for like spell and trap cards would be chain energy, right? So like chain energy says like, oh, every time you like do everything, you pay 500 life points. But if you don't pay life points for the activation of spell or trap cards, then this would turn off that portion of the burn dealing with chain energy. A card that will rack up a lot of life points just by existing, right? So that's a decent concept to also help with avoiding problems. But, like, you know, Dark Doriato, as I said, very popular DM, to go back on the main subject here. And with these cards, you, as I said, you're alleviating the brickiness of certain monsters. If you're playing high-level monsters, you could just start playing them for free. Heroes, if they don't have any summoning restrictions, or like again, I mainly just think of monarchs because they are just great tribute fodder. But like, basically, they're going to help you alleviate some problems if you're drawing into monsters without the means of really getting them out. But then on the other end, you have Time Tearing Morganite to draw more cards, to normal summon more monsters, and to close out a game, you have Succumbing Song to double attack, double the damage, things like that. I think that this overall kit is going to be promising for the future. And I was already running them in a couple of different decks. I find myself adding them to different decks. And I think even more now, more so than before, I will find myself adding mostly the entire kit of these cards. There's hypotheticals that could come up that just you avoid. If a person is trying to like tax you playing cards, life point cost for things, well, the guilt gripping can help prevent that problem. It can help prevent bricking with large level monsters. You just drop them if worst case scenario. And then the others are helping you close the game out and just draw through your deck faster. So really, all in all, I think it's a great engine. I think we have a staple engine for Domain, truth be told. And it'll be interesting to see what, people come up with these new two cards. Immediately for me, I just think of like Dark Doriato and the application of how popular of a DM that is and how open that DM is for what it can offer. But then another way that I do wonder, I could be wrong, and I'm gonna hypothetical a thing here, right? So with Dark Doriato and the Spellcaster engine, there is also the creatures from the Prophecy archetype, like the books, right? Your spellbook creatures. There's like, and they're based on the tarot. If I think some of them have summoning restrictions, but do they all have summoning restrictions, right? So let's see. Okay. As an example, let's take a look at one, a higher level one, Emperor. Okay. So Emperor, you can banish both one face-up spell caster type monster you control, except this card, and a spellbook card from your graveyard to target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Take control of that target until the end phase. You can only use this effect of Emperor Prophecy once per turn. So actually, immediately I'm getting some, basically I thought I had it right, and I'm glad that I'm seeing it. Obviously some of them just want to be special summoned, but for some of these other guys, they can just be brought out. So Guilt Gripping Morganite could just drop Emperor, Reaper, worst case scenario, you just drop World onto the field. It could drop High Priestess. So with this archetype of cards that I've already been looking at for a, Dark Doriato, Spellbook, Spellcaster synergy kind of deck, I'm immediately thinking just splashing in the Morganite kit. That way you can just cheat out some of these larger Prophecy monsters, and then you can just, in general, you can just bring out, big dudes and just drop them for free, which is quite nice. So I think that's going to do it for me today in general. I think I just really like these cards, and I wanted to talk to y'all about them for a little bit. Especially because I do think that this is a, staple engine for Domain has emerged for us to tinker with and what we want to do with it in our deck builds. And I look forward to seeing what people do with them in the future. I know that I'm going to be adding them to different stuff, and I hope that, they have a good success rate and they end up, adding a good buff to some people's decks in Domain. Like I said, that'll be it for me today. I hope you guys have a good one. Thank you guys for watching to the end. If you did, you're a real one. And if you want to support the channel more than you already are by using your time and patience to watch my content, you can leave a like and a comment down below your thoughts about the Morganites, what you might want to put them in terms of a deck, what you're thinking about them. I'd love to see your thoughts about that down below, and anything else you'd like to see on the channel. As I said recently in a Discord update, I've had a bit of a restriction when it comes to my work schedule and being able to put out content. I was, able to get out this, sneak this by with some time I had on hand. But for larger stuff like Domain Chronicles and other research related stuff, I would love to give that more time and not just shoot it out. I want to give that effort as much as possible. That way it is as best as it can be. Along with everything else I put out, I want to give more effort to this stuff so you get your time's worth when you click the channel and you click the video, right? So in general, obviously you can subscribe as well if you want to provide that as support for the channel. Everything you guys do, it means the world to me. Thank you for your support through everything, and honestly, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye bye.